skinnier than I thought I was. Several people noticed I'm wearing my Dr. Seuss stole. I don't wear it too often. Someone thought that perhaps it was on because of Halloween, but it's on because, well, I'll let you figure it out. I was remembering a conversation I had the other day with someone. This was about a year ago. This was someone who was substantially younger than me. Not that I'm old, but they were substantially younger than me. And I was mentioning some place, and I said, it's about 20 miles from such and such. And they said, I don't understand that. And so I repeated. I said, it's about 20 miles. And they said, no, I don't know what miles are. And they were right. They weren't making a joke. This was someone who was young enough that they have grown up only with kilometers. They knew we used to use these things called miles, but they really had no frame of reference as to how long a mile was. And I felt really, really old. I remember living in the US when Canada was switching completely over to metric. Some of it started happening when I was a kid, actually, with Celsius, but when you really switched in earnest to kilometers. I was living in the US, and I was talking about this with someone one day, an older gentleman, and he said, oh, that metric system, it's so hard. They should wait till us older people are gone. And I remember wanting to agree with him, and then I was thinking, hold on, there will be a new set of older people, and then a new set, and this will never, ever end. It reminded me that sometimes when you make change, even humongous change, that totally throws everybody upside down, sometimes you just gotta do it. Waiting isn't always an option. Now, I realize that change is a four-letter word, C-H-A-N-G-E. Well, it's still a four-letter word for many people. We don't like it. And yet it happens. I can't remember offhand the exact number because it scares me, but I have been told on more than one occasion that from the moment we're born, we start losing brain cells. That could be a depressing thought, except apparently we also start regenerating them, or at least regenerating other things and learning stuff, so it's not all down. But I went to non-presbytery this last weekend. Presbytery, as perhaps many of you know, is the gathering of ministers and lay representatives from the churches in Kamloops, Okanagan area. So basically from Clearwater to the U.S. border, from Lillooet to Golden. So it's a pretty big area. We gathered in Revelstoke. Normally it would be a meeting of presbytery, except we need to have a quorum of both laity and clergy, and we were missing a clergy person, so we couldn't transact any business. Hence, we talk fondly of the meeting of non-presbytery, because it still happened, just didn't, take action on anything. But Friday was really interesting. Friday was a gathering of the clergy in our area, and this was a first. Alison Rennie, our conference minister, thought it would be good for us, just those who wanted, to get together for a couple of hours and share some things that are joys for us, some things that are concerns, some things that might be weighing on our minds. It was really odd. Really odd for me, because the mood at that gathering, I can't find a better word for it other than sad. It was really, really sad. And here are these other ministers sitting around, and they're good people. And they're people who I know are good-hearted, and I know that they have good and powerful and profound faith. And yet, they were sad. Part of the sadness is the fact that we, the churches across Canada, have chosen to change the structure of the United Church. And so at the end of next year, presbytery will cease to exist, so we won't be meeting anymore. And for some people, that's hard, because they've been doing this for a long time. But the other sadness was the incredible number of ministers who shared how they felt like the church was done. Not dying, but already done. It's a very strange feeling. And part of the strangeness came from the fact is that I absolutely don't get that. And so I'm sitting there for a couple of hours and I'm going, what is wrong with me? That I don't have this tragic feeling that the church is over and finished. Thank you, by the way, for really helping me this morning and having this place almost full. And when the kids were here, we were darn full. Really helpful, because if I'd walked in and there were 20 people, this wouldn't work so well. But I did realize, and thank you, sincerely, that a big piece of why I was feeling good about the church is you. Is the life that's in this church. We couldn't squeeze another person up there if we tried. And yet we did try. Mike squeezed in. Good job. It's cozy out there. If I walked down, it'd be sort of like, ooh, I'd have to actually sit beside somebody and possibly touch them. And there are an awful lot of churches that don't believe in that. And they make sure there's a lot of space between us. Yesterday was really interesting. We were doing Story Fest in Summerland, and we'll be doing that at the end of November here in Kelowna. And I'm going to trust that the 11 Story Fest folks, the 11 people from this church who were there yesterday, will be talking to others to tell them how good it was. And you'll be coming. It's an incredible experience. It's a day of listening to some biblical stories and talking about our own story and connecting them. And people came away from that just amazed at how powerful it is and how much we crave hearing those stories and talking about them. It was really cool, I have to say, that the largest church represented yesterday in Summerland was this one. 11 of us. Pretty good. The other thing, and I've alerted some of the folks who were there yesterday with, who are, I'll say it really politely, hair color challenged. Is that polite enough? I don't think I mentioned it to you yet, Rob, so I'll apologize. But what was really cool was to look out over this group of people, and most of the people, literally a majority from our church, did not have white hair. Now, there may have been some chemical assistance for some people. I'm not going to go there. And some of us could have found a little Grecian formula before we left in the morning. Hair color ain't everything, but it's a significant thing to notice. There are an awful lot of people here this morning who are well below the average age of people in the United Church in this presbytery. A lot of you. A lot of us. I was frightened to realize that the average age is older than me because I'm not that young anymore. I wondered why. What is it? What is it that we do? Is it that we have the best coffee? I'm guessing, while it's pretty darn good, that's not going to be a deciding factor for most people. I do recognize that often you come for the amazing music that we have, both from there and from here and from others, and you tolerate listening to me. Thank you. But I really think that one of the things that makes this church attractive, and this is a hard thing for a minister to say, is we're not terrified of change. We're not. Doesn't mean we like it. Doesn't mean we want a lot of it. Doesn't mean that every time something is different we go, oh, isn't that nice? We had hymns today that I've never heard before. Or something like that. Or, isn't that wonderful? They're going to paint the church pink. There's some changes that we're not crazy about. But I believe that we've realized, we collectively, and those who have gone before us, and those who will come after us, have begun to realize collectively that God was here long before we got here. God is going to be here long after we're gone. And God likes change. We don't, but God does. Now, towards the end of non-presbytery, Allison, our conference minister, shared her report, which was so wonderful, because she just shared a number of stories of churches around the area that are doing new and different things, churches that are doing change in humongous ways. One of them is a church where there is virtually no one, I don't believe they have anyone in the congregation under the age of 70. And they just hired a new minister. So they hired a minister who was very young, whose experience was with children and youth ministry. And so he got there, and he's one of these people that just barrels in with all sorts of ideas, and no one can put the guy off, which is probably what they needed there. And he said, so, this youth group that we're going to start. And people just said, we can't start a youth group. We don't have any youth. And he just looked at them and he said, well, then why did you hire me? You knew that that's my thing. There are lots of other people you could have hired. I know that. You interviewed other people. How come you hired me? He said, do you think there are any young people in our town that currently don't go to church? And they're all going, well, duh, of course. And he said, so there is the potential for our youth group. Let's create it. And they're doing that. Now, in the process of that, they're also noticing that they're going to become a very bizarre church, because they're going to have a group of people who are 70 plus and a group of people who are, 16 minus. And so they're doing a lot of talking about how this is going to involve a lot of give and take to make this work. But there's absolutely no reason why it can't. Absolutely no reason at all. Another story of another church that I thought was really neat. They have this wonderful building, and they were talking about it, and they did this exercise at their church council meeting where they talked about the building and what it meant to them, and people shared incredible stories. Their family, great-grandparents had been there when the building was built, and people talked about getting married there and having their children baptized there and attending funerals of loved ones there, and how this building was very important to them. And then they approached another question, and that was, how comfortable are you walking into a strange church? And everybody kind of squirmed a little bit, and they said, well, actually, I don't really like that. I'm not really comfortable going to a strange church building. And so as they talked about that, somebody said, we need to get outside of our building. Why don't we worship in our building 3 Sundays a month, and 1 Sunday a month, let's have our service over in the community hall, because people are used to going there. People go there for all sorts of things, dinners and bingo and meetings and elections and everything. People don't have a problem going into that building. So they're going to try it. I'll be dying to know how it works out. But boy, that's a big change. And those are just some of the things going on in other churches. And it was such a neat reminder of how important that is to be open to that. Always. So I get home from presbytery, non-presbytery, with all these ideas, and I look at the scriptures for this week thinking, I might have to go off the lectionary. And there in my face is Psalm 90. God, you've always been there. God, our ancestors made their home in you. They decided to commit themselves to you. And some days things are really not so good, God. But you're still there. And you will be there. And as the people of Israel for thousands of years have sung that psalm, they have known and believed the truth in that. If God is here, we can do anything, even change.